Matthews. He's Professor of Political Science at Cypress College and the author of Dollar Democracy on Steroids. He joins us live from Los Angeles. Peter, good to have you with us. So, look, I mean, we saw a night of chaos and drama on the floor of the House, leading to McCarthy finally winning that 15th round of votes. How did he manage to finally flip the rebels? And does this mean that dissenters like Matt Gaetz have compromised their ultra-conservative principles just to get McCarthy across the line?
I don't think so. I think they've actually gotten him to compromise some of, the positions that he took initially. For example, the way the rules were set up under him, proposed rules, was that it would take 5 members of Congress to get together and to put forth a motion of no confidence or to vote to vacate the seat of the Speaker. And that Matt Gaetz wanted to come down. The Freedom Caucus folks who were pushing for this, they wanted to come down to one person. One member of Congress can at any time ask for a vote of no confidence, a motion to vacate, which means the Speaker is always going to be at the mercy of the vote of other members in the House who want to get rid of him. And it's going to take a very weakened Speaker. So McCarthy gave up a lot of things. They want term limits. That's going to be on the agenda, that he put that in it. 2 seats on the Rules Committee, a very powerful committee which helps to write how legislation will be discussed and introduced. The Freedom Caucus, the Matt Gaetz people, who wanted 2 seats out of 9 on their side for that. And that's a tremendous amount of power. So I think that McCarthy gave up a lot more than Matt Gaetz did in order to get this final vote, which was barely there. Yeah,
that's an interesting point you make, Peter, because McCarthy, as you say, offered, these concessions to the rebels. Some analysts say, as you, I think, have just highlighted there, it'll significantly weaken McCarthy's leadership. What is this telling us about the deep divisions within the Republican Party, do you think?
Tremendous, and it began with President Trump, and it is really remarkable that today is January the 6th, the day of the insurrection 2 years ago, which many of these folks actually supported, either tacitly or outwardly. The folks in Congress, some of these people on these caucuses that are pushing for more radicalism. And what's happening is on this day, we have a divided Republican Party, which is very detrimental to the United States. It's detrimental because you have to have a unified party on both sides in order to have real debate and real resolution of issues and sometimes compromise to run the government forward. Instead, you got one party in power in the House, so divided it can't even get its own speaker to be elected on the first or second or third ballot. 15 ballots. So this is very dangerous. Things have to be looked at very carefully now and do best to try to get people to unite on issues and both parties to come together, but especially within the Republican Party.
Peter, so in order then to pass key bills like budget bills or raising the debt ceiling, McCarthy will have to borrow some Democratic votes. Is McCarthy strong enough politically, do you think, to ask for the Dems' help? And what is Hakeem Jeffries, what's his incentive to help McCarthy?
Well, the main incentive is to make sure the U.S. government will stay viable, especially with the debt ceiling have to be raised, because if you don't raise the debt ceiling by next August or September, the new budget will be more abundant. It wouldn't be able to, the United States cannot make its payments to the people it borrowed money from, foreign governments, wealthy individuals, and there's going to be a market collapse. It'll affect the economy of the United States and the world if the debt ceiling is not increased. And so these more right-wing Republicans in the Freedom Caucus don't want to raise the debt ceiling. Or if they do raise the debt ceiling, they want to cut out the programs correspondingly, which can really hurt the economy as well. So this is a big, tough decision that they have to make. The Democrats have to be able to support this, and whether or not McCarthy will work with them to actually get the debt ceiling increased to keep the economy viable starting in September and August of this coming year.
Just a final thought to you. I mean, given all the political infighting we've had, all right, in fact, I'm going to leave you there for a second, Peter, because Hakeem Jeffries is handing over the gavel now to Kevin McCarthy to swear him in. We're looking at pictures now of McCarthy with the famous Speaker's gavel. Let's just listen to what he has to say.
That was easy, huh? I never thought we'd get up here. Thank you, Minority Leader Jeffries. Hakeem, I've got to warn you. 2 years ago, I got 100% of the vote from my conference. There's somebody else I want to thank. The gentlelady who served as our presiding officer this week, our clerk, Cheryl Johnson. Thank you. You know, my father always told me, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And now we need to finish strong for the American people. You know, if a son of a fireman and a grandchild of immigrants can rise to the highest position in the most important legislative body in our country, and if my colleague, Hakeem Jeffries, with his life story, can rise to lead his party, then opportunity and democracy still thrive in America. To Leader Jeffries, there will be times we agree, and many times we will differ. I promise our debates will be passionate, but they will never be personal. That's my commitment to you. And now, the hard work begins. What we do here today, next week, next month, next year, will set the tone for everything that follows. Tonight, I want to talk directly to the American people. As Speaker of the House, my ultimate responsibility is not to my party, my conference, or even our Congress. My responsibility, our responsibility, is to our country. Two months ago, you voted for a new direction for our country. You embraced our commitment to America. And now we're going to keep our commitment to you. It's a commitment for an economy that's strong, where you could fill up your tank of gas and feed your family, where paychecks grow and not shrink. It's a commitment for a nation that's safe, where communities are protected, law enforcement is respected, and criminals are prosecuted. A commitment for the future that's built on freedom, where children come first and are taught to dream big. Because in America, dreams can still come true. A commitment for a government that is held accountable, where Americans get the answers they want, need, and deserve. Our system is built on checks and balances. It's time for us to be a check and provide some balance to the president's policies. There is nothing more important than making it possible for American families to live and enjoy the lives they deserve. That is why we commit to stop wasteful Washington spending, to lower the price of groceries, gas, cars, housing, and stop the rising national debt. We pledge to cut the regulatory burden, lower energy costs for families, and create good-paying jobs for workers by unleashing reliable, abundant, American-made energy. I know the night is late, but when we come back, our very first bill will repeal the funding for 87,000 new hours. You see, we believe government should be to help you, not go after you. We're going to pass bills to fix the nation's current challenges, from wide open southern borders to American last energy policies to woke indoctrination in our schools. We'll also address America's long-term challenges, the debt, and the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. Congress must speak with one voice on both of these issues. This is why we will end wasteful Washington spending. From now on, if a federal bureaucrat wants to spend it, they will come before us to defend it. As for the Chinese Communist Party, we will create a bipartisan select committee on China to investigate how to bring back the hundreds of thousands of jobs that went to China, and then we will win this economic competition. Now, speaking of committees, we will hold the swamp accountable. From the withdrawal of Afghanistan to the origins of COVID and to the weaponization of the FBI. Let me be very clear. We will use the power of the purse and the power of the subpoena to get the job done. This is something we should all agree upon. We will stand up and speak out for the backbone of our economy, the hard-working taxpayer. It's nighttime here in Washington. But in some ways, it's also like a new beginning, a fresh start. My friends, this chamber is now fully open for all Americans to visit. I want to give all Americans a personal invitation. You are welcome to see this body at work. No longer will the doors be closed, but the debates will be open for you to witness what happens in the People's House. From the committee rooms to this floor, we commit to pursue the truth passionately and embrace debate. No more one-sided inquiries. competing ideas will be put to the test in public so that the best ideas win. But we also pledge to bring Congress to the people, because answers have not and will not always be found in Washington. That's why one of our very first hearings will be held on the southern border. No more ignoring a crisis of safety and sovereignty. We must secure our border. We must get America back on track. Now, on a personal note, to my family, here and at home, to Judy, Megan, Connor, Emily, my brother Mark, Monica, Zach, and yes, my mom, Bert. I am where I am because you are who you are. You can stand. I'd also like to thank my constituents in California's Central Valley. Yes, and especially my hometown of Bakersfield. I don't know if you're familiar with music, but as Buck Owens sings, how many of you that sit and judge me have ever walked the streets of Bakersfield? Well, I've walked those streets my entire life. I know its people. They're hardworking and relentless, optimistic about our future. And I'm very honored to have the opportunity to represent them. I am a son of a firefighter. I saw firsthand what it means to have hard work, leadership, and service to others. It can change people's lives. And that is exactly why we are here today, to serve you, the people. We come here with the support of our families and the faith of our neighbors to be their voice in Washington. For all the wives and husbands, children and parents who are watching, a loved one to be sworn in, I knew it took a couple extra days. I'll be honest, it's not how I had it planned. I want you to remember this moment. Take it in. Your loved ones are about to make history. My colleagues and I thank you for your understanding and your sacrifice. And we will work every day to make you proud. My most favorite spot in this building is not in this chamber. It's in the chamber they met before, in Statuary Hall. It's my favorite place to take people on a tour. You see, it's where Abraham Lincoln served. He was just a one-term congressman, sat in the back. I like to go to that spot and I like to stand where he stood. I like to do it at night when people aren't around. I like to look over and look at the clock, because that's the same clock and same view that Abraham Lincoln saw. I've watched Lincoln serve in the greatest challenge to our Constitution, the Civil War. I watched him take peoples who were rivals and put them together. I watched in a time that he did not know if a nation could sustain itself, but he dreamt of a future and built a railroad across the nation. I want us to all take a moment one time that you are here. I want you to stand there. I want you to look. And I want you to think, if America could do it then, we can do it now one more time. You know, Abraham Lincoln gave his life in service to this country. One of his most important observations about America applies today, as much as it did 160 years ago. He said, "We are striving to maintain the government and institutions of our fathers and to transmit them to our children and our children's children's forever." My fellow Americans, that is still our mission today. This moment calls for restoring trust within our country and with each other. In that spirit, I will work with anyone and everyone who shares our passion to deliver a better future for the nation. I hope you'll join me. As a Congress, we can only operate if we cooperate. My door will be open. I'd like you to come by. I want you to see, as you walk down the hall, a large portrait of Lincoln. I want you to go into that conference room. I want you to see another portrait. My members know of this. It's of Washington crossing the Delaware. You all know the story. It happened on Christmas, 1776. There was no iPhone to take a picture. People wonder when it was painted. It wasn't painted by someone who was there. It was painted in 1850 and 1851. He was an immigrant who lived in America, Emanuel Lentz. You know why he painted it? Because he knew America was more than a country. America was an idea. He went home to Germany, and he wanted Germany to have a revolution based upon the values and freedoms that we defend every day. His talent was art. So he believed if he painted this painting, he could inspire his countrymen to rise up for the idea of freedom. Well, many historians will tell you he didn't get it correct. They'll tell you Washington crossed on a Durham boat, but he paints it with Washington in a rowboat. You see 13 people, but only 12 faces. You see Washington standing up in a rowboat in the middle of winter, wearing a ceremonial uniform with his hand on his chest. He looks so stoic. You would look at that man, you'd say, I'd follow him anywhere. You probably believe that he never lost a battle. But history would tell us at that moment, at that time, he had only lost. We had never won. You see, that was the night of our first victory as a nation when we surprised the Hessians. But when you look at that painting, don't look at Washington. I want you to look at who's in the boat. You see, the second rower in the beret, he's Scottish. The person directly across from him in the green, rowing in the exact same cadence, is an African American. You come down right to the middle in the red, the person who's rowing the strongest is a woman. And in the very back is a Native American. I don't know from a historic fact if they were in the boat that night, but to this young immigrant who had lived in America, that's who he believed would be in the boat. The second to last person is a farmer. He could be from Bakersfield, not sure. His hand goes across his face. People will debate this part. But what I see is a hand of the 13th person nobody sees. You see, what I believe Emmanuel is saying is, here we are, battling for the creation of the idea of freedom. That every individual is equal, not a perfect nation, but striving to be a more perfect union. Having lost every battle against the greatest challenge with the strongest nation, having lost them all, but willing to do it on our holiest of nights, with a hand reached out and asking if you would join us. That's as true today as it was then. If we let everybody in the boat, if we row in the same cadence together, there is no obstacle this body can overcome for this nation. It is time for us to be the voice and worthy of their vote. Let me close with this. I may not know all of you, some of you are new, but I hope one thing is clear after this week. I never give up. And I make this promise. I'll never give up for you, the American people. And I will never give up on keeping our commitment to America. Our nation is worth fighting for. Our rights are worth fighting for. Our dreams are worth fighting for. Our future is worth fighting for. Therefore, with love for this country and charity for each other, let us now take our oath and be worthy of the office on which we are about to enter. God bless everybody in this chamber, and God bless America.
So you're watching live pictures there from the floor of the House of Representatives on Capitol Hill. The new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, who finally won enough votes after 15 rounds of voting to be the new Speaker. He said it's not how you start, but how you finish, referring to obviously the difficult task of getting the votes to be Speaker. He said there'll be times of agreement and disagreement with the Democrats, but the leader of the Democratic caucus, Hakeem Jeffries, shouldn't take it personally. He said now is the time that all the hard work will begin. He said American dreams can still come true where Americans get answers delivered by a government that recognizes checks and balances. He talked about Congress must speak with one voice on wasted spending in Washington and on one issue of foreign policy. He talked about China. He said one of his priorities will be to create a bipartisan select committee in order to bring back the thousands of jobs that have gone to China. And he says, as a Congress, it can only operate if it cooperates. All right, we've still got Peter Matthews, our guest from Los Angeles. Also joining us is Rina Shah, a former Republican strategist and senior aide to Republican members of Congress. Rina, thanks for joining us. A rather lofty speech from Kevin McCarthy, the new Speaker. What do you think are the main challenges for him going forward? I mean, he talked about getting America back on track.
Well, my main takeaway from these 5 days of voting, essentially, and 15 ballots is that we are a representative democracy that is under so much stress. There was so much bitterness and frustration that played out, especially in these final moments of getting to the speakership for McCarthy, that I think he is tasked with this monumental task of leading us towards responsible governance. And he's got to find a way to unite his own people. That is the biggest takeaway for me tonight. And that I really believe he is a man who is not sure how he is going to do it, despite giving such a strong speech saying he's up to the task.
Yeah, that's an important point you make, Rina, because we saw a night, as you say, of chaos and acrimony on the floor, leading to McCarthy obviously winning that 15th round of votes. How did he manage, do you think, to flip the rebels? I mean, does this mean that GOP dissenters like Matt Gaetz, for instance, have compromised their ultra-conservative principles? I mean, just to get McCarthy across the line.
There's no other way to put it than saying that Kevin McCarthy begged, borrowed, and stole to get where he got tonight. He has wanted the speakership for so many years. And I remember on Capitol Hill watching him ascend in House leadership in the ranks of Republicans and really thinking that he is a political animal. He isn't a person that is known for his policy chops. When he was a right-hand man to Speaker Paul Ryan, the Republican speaker who's best known for his love of policymaking, Kevin McCarthy was thought to be a man who could do the job of dirty political games and do it right. What we saw this entire past week is that he doesn't have much of a spine. He gave up a great many things. And these concessions, it's important to note, we don't fully know what all of them were. Many of these were leaked, but officially we will come to know in the weeks ahead what exactly was promised, because some of these promises were made with a handshake. And as we saw on display in the final day of voting and in these last few ballots, trust in his own caucus has been eroded. There were 6 final holdouts that essentially voted present to give him the speakership, lowering the threshold for him, so to speak, as well. And those people really do not trust him, and he really had to do anything possible to get their vote.
Yeah, let me just put that point then to Peter over in Los Angeles. I mean, Peter, as Rina was saying there, McCarthy has offered a number of concessions to the rebels. Some analysts say that, look, this will significantly weaken his leadership. Do you think he's going to come to regret those deals that he's made?
I think Rina really, described it quite well, what the process of what took place. But he will be hobbled in a sense with what he offered. We don't even know a lot of what he offered. We don't know. What did he whisper to Matt Gaetz at the end to get Matt Gaetz to vote present and help to put him over the top? So we don't know any of this yet. And Rina's correct. We know what really came down in terms of the agreements that he made. And I didn't think it was very seemly to see, the United States of America, which is our country, our wonderful country, it's a democracy, a democratic republic, and an example of the world. At the same time, this bargaining going on worldwide television of a speaker begging for votes and then making deals. We know there were deals made because the television screens kept having the bullet points of everything given away. And this doesn't seem to me like a democracy, process of democracy, which is based on ideas and on cohesion coming together with a set of ideas that would compete with other ideas. This is the problem here. I think that in the end, he's going to be a weakened speaker, a very weak speaker, so to speak, but we'll have to wish him well. We want him to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, going forward, Peter, in terms of business, in order to pass key bills like budget bills or raising the debt ceiling, McCarthy will have to borrow some Democratic votes. That's an interesting point. Is McCarthy strong enough, do you think, politically to ask for the Dems' help?
I think he asked for their help, and some of them provide it. The problem is that's going to turn off some of his right-wing and even the middle-of-the-road Republican supporters on his side. And they might start making bargains with him or telling him they're not going to support him on other issues. And at any moment, since he agreed, apparently, to this motion to vacate regarding one person, one member of Congress putting it forward, the entire Congress that gets to vote on to make him leave the office, it's like a motion of no confidence. Since he gave in on that, he could be up to challenge a motion to vacate every week. That doesn't give him a solid base to stand on. So it doesn't matter if he gets through the Democrats to support him or not. He can try, and he should try. But it'll also put him in the middle of tension and different ideological perspectives that we see the Congress exhibiting all the way through, within the party, Republican Party, and also between the two parties.
Rina, let me get a final thought from you. I mean, given all this political infighting that you've just talked about, we've seen it laid bare over the past few days. Do you think this is an omen for the next 2 years as Republican conservatives try and block President Biden's legislative agenda going forward?
Well, I would hope that McCarthy would take a page out of former President Lincoln's book, who he referred to tonight in his speech. You know, the person that really so many of us Republicans over the years have idolized. I think you look at Lincoln or Reagan and their legacies, and if they were alive today, I think they'd have a hard time recognizing this party. McCarthy has gone into speakership saying that he wants to do investigations, and he hasn't talked much about what legislation he wants to pass. So I think he would be good to read the room. It would be helpful for him in his speakership. It would maybe turn things around for the Republicans, who are not looking good on the world stage, much less to our entire American electorate. And I think he should focus on three key policy areas, being economy, immigration, and energy. If he chooses to focus on solutions and give alternatives to what the Democrats did in the previous Congress and what Biden is doing from his administration, there could be a hope for expanding their votes with the electorate. But right now, Republicans are looking like a party that had trouble governing itself. So how can they govern the nation from the people's house? That is what is most concerning from tonight.
All right, we have to leave it there. Rina Shah there in Washington, D.C., and Peter Matthews joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you both. All right, let's cross now.